Once upon a time, in a prosperous village, there lived an old man who had spent his entire life working hard and enduring many hardships. He was a man who had tasted the bitterness and sweetness of life, labored under the burning sun, worn calluses on his hands, and toiled for many long years. The result of a lifetime of effort was a fertile farm, a fruitful orchard, a well-kept house filled with furnishings, herds of cattle and sheep, a significant amount of cash, jewelry, and best of all, respect and honor among the people of the village. God had also blessed him with a good and healthy son, a boy who was the source of his comfort and the hope of his old age. From time to time, the old man would sit his son down, pour him some tea brewed over fire, and gently advise him in a soft and kind voice. "My son, don't be wasteful. Keep track of what you earn and what you spend. If you help someone, do it in a way that doesn't embarrass them or make begging a habit for them. The world is a place of work and wisdom." But the more the father advised, the less the son paid attention. One day the son asked his father, "Father, who is a good friend?" The old man smiled and said, "A good friend is someone who always tells you the truth, even when it's bitter. Someone who doesn't make your faults look good to you." The son asked, "Then who is a bad friend?" The father replied, "Someone who lies to you and shows your enemies as if they were your friends." The son shook his head and said, "If that's the case, then such a person isn't a friend at all. Friendship has no good or bad attached to it. Either it exists or it doesn't." The old man stroked his beard, smiled, and said, "Well said, my son. That means you're beginning to understand the meaning of friendship." But fate does not remain silent. Sometime later, the father fell ill and passed away. The young man, who had just stepped into a life of ease, abandoned his studies and decided to continue his father's work, but he had none of his father's patience, none of his experience, none of his work ethic, and no real desire to work. Gradually, he neglected the farm, the orchard, the cattle, and the sheep. Instead, he grew accustomed to long outings, pointless parties, and useless entertainments. His father's money slipped from his hands like water, and the friends who gathered around him were only friends of his wealth, not of his soul. His mother, who observed everything from a distance with growing concern, said, "My son, don't forget your father's advice. These friends you have are friends of your pleasure and your money. Be careful with them." But the son, drunk on youth, said, "No, mother. These are actually the best friends. I want to test them." That night he held a large feast, the best food, the best hospitality. In the middle of the gathering he said, "Guys, last night a mouse came and ate the stone mortar in our house." Everyone burst out laughing and said, "Really? A mouse can chew anything. Your mortar must have been dirty, so it came and ate it. A mouse can climb walls. A stone mortar is nothing. Mice do things like that, it's fine." The son turned to his mother proudly and said, "See? These are my best friends. Whatever I say, they confirm it." His mother sighed and said, "My son, that was no test. You must ask something difficult of them, or something valuable. Ask them to do something for the poor, or ask them for money, or even pretend to be sick for a few days, then see how many of them remain. Someone who agrees with everything you say is not a friend. A friend is someone who tells you the truth, even if you don't like it." But the son didn't listen, and life did what it always does. Little by little, his money ran out. His farm dried up. He sold the orchard. His cattle and sheep were seized cheaply by those same close friends. He lost his house in gambling, and one day he realized he had nothing left. No money, no land, no honor, and no friends. One day, while sitting aside with those former friends, now equally aimless, the subject of mice came up. The young man said, "Last night there was a loaf of bread on the table. In the middle of the night, a mouse came, tore through the cloth, and ate the bread." The friend sneered, "So that's why you're not giving us breakfast? If a mouse could eat a whole loaf, then when you said it ate a stone mortar, we'd have known you were lying. We knew from the beginning your stories were nonsense." It was right then that the young man understood. He had lost everything. His wealth, his honor, and even his sense and judgment. With deep shame he lowered his head, went to his mother, and said, You were right. I understood it too late, but it was already too late.